Добрый вечер, шановне спадарства. Мы вельми рады открывать.
Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen. We are very happy to open this event. We are a Belarusian ensemble, Krivi, and we sing women's folk songs that are dedicated to different rituals. The next song is called "The Girls Were Walking Around," and this song is about solidarity. A warm welcome. Good evening. This was beautiful music. Dear Viola von Kramon, dear members of the jury, dear Darya Afanasieva, dear Irina Alkhovka, dear Julia Mickiewicz, dear friends and families of our laureates, Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, a warm welcome to this year's Anne Klein Women's Award. I'm very happy to welcome you here tonight. Thank you very much for this musical introduction by the Belarusian musicians of Kryvyi, Veronika Krulova, Anastasia Khmel, and Valeria Novik. We will hear more of this ensemble because they will accompany our tonight's award ceremony. And I would like to welcome Dita Brachat, our first award laureate of 2012. And she's also here because she knows one of this year's laureates and has worked with her, which is a beautiful connection. And now I actually would have the honor to introduce and give the floor to our Minister of Family, retired women and youth, Lisa Paus. Unfortunately, she could not be here, and you will get the opportunity to read her statement on our website and her speech. But first of all, let me direct our attention to Anne Klein, the woman to whom this award is dedicated. She was an activist and a very important figure that wanted to honor women that don't stand in the limelight, although they would have deserved it. So first of all, we will see a short video, and then we will hear a song. But first of all, please show the video.
Frauen haben eine andere Vorstellung von Politik und eine andere Qualität von menschlichen Beziehungen, die sich auch in der Form der politischen Auseinandersetzung durchsetzen und zeigen wird. Anne Klein legte den Grundstein für einen neuen Stil in der Politik. Sie war Feministin, Anwältin und Notarin und die erste Senatorin in Berlin, die offen lesbisch lebte.
Anne war Feministin und das hat man immer gemerkt bei allem, was sie getan hat, bei allem, über das sie nachgedacht hat, bei allen Positionen, die sie vertreten hat.
Anne Klein war durch und durch Feministin und war durch und durch Juristin. Und sie kämpfte mit den juristischen Mitteln um die gleichen Rechte für Frauen und gegen Diskriminierung. Und sie bekämpfte insbesondere sehr leidenschaftlich, wenn Recht eingesetzt wurde, um Menschen zu diskriminieren.
1989 wurde Anne Klein unter Walter Momper im Berliner Senat, der wegen seiner Frauenmehrheit auch als Feminat bekannt wurde, Senatorin für Jugend, Frauen und Familie. Sie schwor ihren Eid mit den Worten: "So wahr mir Göttin helfe."
Sie hat sich als Feministin für Frauen- und Mädchenprojekte eingesetzt, hat dafür gesorgt, dass die gefördert werden, dass die eine politische Lobby bekommen. Und sie hat als Senatorin das Referat für gleichgeschlechtliche Lebensweisen ins Leben gerufen.
Und sie hat sehr früh erkannt, dass es eigentlich darum geht, Institutionen zu schaffen, die plötzlich Kraft und Energie multiplizieren. Das hat sie dann richtig aufgenommen, um mal zu gucken, wo ist eigentlich der zentrale strukturelle Hebel, der ganz viel verändert.
Anne Klein engagierte sich in der Berliner Frauenbewegung, war Mitbegründerin des ersten Frauenhauses in Berlin und stärkte die Rolle der Frauen in der Politik nachhaltig.
Ja, Anne war rational und leidenschaftlich zugleich. Sie war nicht verbissen, aber sie kämpfte mit großer Leidenschaft und glaubte an das rationale Argument. Sie hatte sehr, sehr viel Charme. Sie war sehr offen gegenüber anderen Menschen. Und ich glaube, das hat bewirkt, dass sie tatsächlich überzeugend war und viele Freunde und Freundinnen hatte.
Anne Klein war eine Person, die immer furios bei der Sache war. Also so viel und breit gelebt hat, von Journalismus bis Reiseleiterin.
Und sie war immer eine Anwältin, die sich in ganz besonderer Weise für die Mandantinnen und Mandanten eingesetzt hat, deren Vertretung sie übernommen hatte. Wirklich mehr als andere, sehr kämpferisch, sehr engagiert.
Anne Klein konnte anderen Kraft geben. Sie konnte anderen Mut geben, ermutigen, sich für Frauenrechte, gegen Diskriminierung einzusetzen. Also das war das Wunderbare an ihr.
Ich glaube, was sie am meisten beeindruckt hat, war doch immer, dass Personen auch den Mut haben, den Finger gegen den Mainstream in eine Wunde zu legen. Auch den Mut zu haben, Dinge, die am Anfang noch obskur erscheinen, einfach auch anzusprechen. Deshalb freue ich mich, dass es einen Anne-Klein-Preis gibt, der eines schaffen kann, nämlich Beharrlichkeit und Mut in solchen Bedingungen auch auszuzeichnen.
Damit Frauen weiterhin öffentlich für ihr Engagement wahrgenommen und gefördert werden, hat Anne Klein den Anne-Klein-Frauenpreis gestiftet.
Ach, der Preis, das war eigentlich eine ganz unfassbare Geschichte. Also man hat ja nicht Erfahrung mit sowas. Und als es dann losging, war ich erst mal nur gerührt. Und dann war das so, dass ich wahnsinnig überrollt war von dem öffentlichen Interesse, aber auch von dem Interesse der Leute, die ich kenne. Tatsächlich haben die Themen, für die ich stehe, durch den Preis auch nochmal Aufschub bekommen. Ich habe bis heute noch Anfragen zu Themen, zu denen ich arbeite. Es gab relativ viel Zeitungsartikel und Interviews und so. Das heißt, auch für Banying, also wo ich eben auch arbeite, war das auch sehr gut. Und auch das zu sehen, dass auch die Idee funktioniert. Also das hat sie sich ja überlegt. Ich meine, sie war ja sehr krank am Ende und hat in dieser Krankheitszeit eine Idee entwickelt, die ich genial finde und die einfach auch funktioniert, also in meinem Fall auf jeden Fall funktioniert hat.
Anne Klein stiftete der Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung den Anne-Klein-Frauenpreis, damit auch in Zukunft das Engagement von Frauen für Menschenrechte, Gleichberechtigung und sexuelle Selbstbestimmung gefördert wird.
Now it's this beautiful time when nature awakens and spring begins. So this is why we want to sing a song for you which was sung in ancient times before Christianity to call spring, when birds came, when sun started to shine and spring awakened.
Что ж ты нам принесла? Аго, весна, аго, красна, а что ж ты нам принесла? На святую Масленицу да вылетала же ластовица. Вылетала ластовица. Да вылетела же ластовица с черного мора на поле. Черного мора на поле. Черного мора и на поле сядайте малойцы на коне. Сядайте малойцы на коне. Принесла.
Thank you. Dear friends, dear laureates, dear guests, for 30 years, Alexander Lukashenko has ruled Belarus in a dictatorial manner. In January, he let himself be re-elected as a president in a rigged election. The media are controlled, many independent news portals are blocked, and anyone who expresses criticism risks prison and penal colonies. More than 1,200 people are currently in political detention, isolated from their families and lawyers, subjected to forced labor and sometimes without medical care. More than 10 political prisoners are being held in solitary confinement, and 4 have died in custody last year. All of this is happening less than 1,000 kilometers linear distance from here. It is clear that we here in Europe are heading for a crisis-ridden time with many dangers. Among the major powers, the US, Russia, and China, that want to divide up the world, we no longer have any allies. Right-wing extremists and fascists are increasingly gaining power and influence throughout Europe, not least in the parliamentary elections here in Germany just about 2 weeks ago. The rights of women, minorities, and the persecuted are being challenged. Discourses are hardening and drifting far to the right, dangerously so. And just beyond the EU's borders, in Belarus, there is a dictatorship that is wanted by, or that is built up by Russia. And Ukraine has been defending itself for 3 years against Russia's brutal war of aggression. Despite all my belief in the power of democracy, hope and optimism are increasingly difficult for me in these times. All the more impressive for me is the commitment of this year's award winners, Darya Afanasieva, Irina Alkhovka, and Julia Mickiewicz, have stood and continue to stand up for women's rights, representation and participation, and speak out against gender-based discrimination and violence, without any certainty that they will not become the target of repression and persecution and expose themselves to risks abroad. They show us once again that the path to equality and a just society requires not only legislation and institutional reforms, but also diverse and persistent civil society action is necessary. For a long time, a recipe for success in Belarus was to pragmatically address problems, seek dialogue with authorities, achieve change on a small scale, and help people. As the Heinrich-Böll Foundation, we supported trainings for police officers and social workers to raise awareness of gender-based violence. But today, such projects are unimaginable. After the rigged presidential elections in 2020, many committed people had to leave the country. Human rights cultural, environmental, and educational organizations were dissolved, as were social organizations. Nevertheless, many people continue to be committed and stay active. In Belarus and in exile, for example, in one of the many initiatives that have formed in Poland and the Baltic states, people like Darya, Irina, and Julia show us that giving up the fight for dignity, rights, and democracy is not an option. We must not let ourselves be paralyzed by hopelessness and fear, even when the threat is real or the fight is already believed to be lost. Darya, Irina, and Julia are women who show initiative and do what is possible, even under adverse circumstances. In this, they are representative of the many women in the Belarusian democracy movement. The images of Lukashenko's challenger Svetlana Tikhanovskaya have been seen around the world. After the election fraud, women not only led the huge protests, but also took part. Many of them have paid a high price for doing so. They were imprisoned or, like our laureates, had to flee into exile. Darya Afanasieva only managed to do so after more than 2 years in prison. Today, 5 years later, the situation in Belarus itself, but also for the opposition in exile, has not become any easier. With the staged election in January, Lukashenko cemented his power for years to come. I asked our laureates during our dinner on Tuesday, do you still have hope for a democratic and gender-equal future in Belarus? I was impressed by your answers, Irina, Darya, and Julia. You said that you're encouraged by the fact that something is changing among men. Young men, in particular, are now less likely to have a problem recognizing women's independence and are no longer afraid, for example, of sharing the restaurant bill with their girlfriend. It gives them hope. It gives you hope that women around the world are fighting for the same cause. This gives you strength. And that women around the world are becoming stronger and louder and are voicing their concerns. And that gives you hope that you will not longer have to do this one day. And one day simply be able to live, be at home again. And for me and us, this is also a very good reason for hope. Because these three women also prove with their action, with their work, that the regime is not succeeding in destroying the will for freedom, democratic values, and feminist attitudes within Belarusian society. With their commitment, Julia, Irina, and Darya are influencing socio-political debates in Belarus, in the country, from outside of the country, from exile, and they are enabling a counter-narrative to the Russian discourse and a deeply patriarchal social image of the ruler Lukashenko. However, with their feminist position, they are also important agents of change within the opposition in exile, fighting for gender policy issues and equal representations and participation of women. Feminism in and from Belarus takes place in a context in which women face considerable obstacles, not only in the political sphere, but also in social and in economic areas. The patriarchal structures that permeate the country make it particularly difficult for women to demand their rights. Nevertheless, Darya, Irina, and Julia have never given up. They have shown that women are not only victims of repression, but can also be active agents of change. The Latin American feminists have a motto that reads, El futuro será feminista o no será. This means something like, the future is feminist, or there is no future. One could also say democracy is feminist, or there is no democracy. Because without the recognition of women's and LGBTIQ rights, without the right fight against discrimination and gender-based violence, without equal access to power and political participation for all people, and without women like Julia, Irina, and Darya, there will be no real democracy in Belarus or anywhere else in Europe or in the world. By awarding the Anne Klein Women's Award this year, we want to show our solidarity and express our respect for the three laureates' commitment to a free and gender-equal Belarus in a democratic Europe. The award for these three remarkable women is also a signal to the people of Belarus. We have not forgotten you. We are watching you closely. And we are not only watching Russian missiles, but also women's rights and social justice is of our concern. Darya, Irina, and Julia, your work is a beacon of hope for all of us. Congratulations on this well-deserved award, and thank you very much for everything that you do for women in Belarus and around the world. Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Viola von Kramon, who will read the jury statement.
Liebe Darya, liebe Irina. Darya, Irina, Julia, Imme, members of the awarding committee. Today we are awarding a prize to three women, and before making a few remarks on the situation in your country, in Belarus, I would first of all like to congratulate you very warmly. As Imme just said, you have won this award for your personal dedication, and you personally deserve it. For that reason, it is a great honor for me to be able to give the laudatory speech today. This awarding ceremony is certainly a good reason to shed a light on the political situation in Belarus. And due to the terrible assault of Russia on Ukraine, it has somewhat got into the shade of the situation. And on the one hand, there is a rebalancing of Donald Trump's policy vis-à-vis Russia. For that reason, we really have to be worried about Ukraine. But we also need to deal in more detail with the neighboring states of Russia. And I have been able to visit your country a while ago, and I was really surprised because the country was really different from what I expected. Belarus is in the middle of Europe. It is civilized and it is progressive and also feminist, although this has been longer since the rule of the dictatorship and the dictator Lukashenko. And dictators are getting more and more repressive, more brutal, and if the worst comes to the worst, they even wage war. And one of the few positive aspects in the current situation is that so far, at least officially, Belarus has been able to stay away from Russia's aggression on Ukraine. For Germans, Belarus was largely unknown. This changed quickly when it came to the regular elections of the 2024 elections. It was brutal. The democratic movements were suppressed, and how Putin also supported the oppression of the protesters. But an interesting experience was made by us. Well, it was the women who were in the lead. This was really the contrary of the terrible behavior of Lukashenko, a ruler who asserts, and I am quoting here, "Our constitution is not for women, and our society is not ready to vote for a woman, because according to our constitution, the president has strong power." And also in relation to the presidency, look, this is not a female position. I'm categorically against burdening a woman with this job. A woman cannot be a dictator. End of quote. And this really says a lot about his self-image, really. And in August, after the rigged 2020 election, it was women who protested and bravely marched forward, who organized mass demonstrations in a civilized and disciplined manner, who stood up for their rights, and even more so, they smiled and they distributed roses to the heavily hooded security forces, exposing all the absurdity and perversion of the regime based on the three women, Svetlana Tishkanovskaya, Maria Kolesnikova, and Veronika Tsepkalo. Countries seem to empower itself, and above all, the women in society did not seem to want to be intimidated despite the massive violence, the thousands of arrests, the torture, and rape committed against women in prison. At the time, we in the European Parliament repeatedly stood for these courageous women, expressed our solidarity, invited them to Parliament, fought for the imprisoned activists and women, organized money and sponsorships for their relatives. But in the end, we have to concede, despite all our commitment, we are not where we would like Belarus to be, in the free part of Europe. Nor have we been able to free most of the women and activists from their suffering, neither from the pressures in the public sphere nor from the shackles of the domestic environment. This is why it is all the more important that by honoring our 3 award winners this evening, we're giving 3 people from this group of courageous feminists the attention that they so richly deserve for their years and in some cases decades of commitment, for their convictions and for their dedication to women's rights in their country. I would therefore like to introduce to you in detail our 3 award winners who are so different in their activities and yet united in their goal of making a huge step forward for feminism and women's rights in Belarus. Let me start off with Irina. Irina is, as we would say in German, to the founding fathers, or rather mothers, of the women's movement in independent Belarus. She realized very early on what she wanted and decided, in addition to her academic career, to get involved in social politics and provide practical help for women. Irina's biography is closely linked to the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s. The fears and hardships that women were exposed to in the successor states, and due to the economic crises, hyperinflation, and the millions of job losses, have long been erased from so many people's memories. But it is hard to underestimate what a time of hardship it was for women. And especially the human trafficking at the end of the 1990s, of women in particular, she decided to join La Strada Belarus. This organization offered practical help for women who were in need due to domestic violence. Only a short time later, Irina succeeded in getting Belarusian criminal legislation amended to include a clause against human trafficking for the first time, a first real success for her work. Later, hotlines and emergency shelters were set up for victims of human trafficking. In 2012, she and her team were even able to establish a national hotline for survivors of domestic violence, where they provided advice to thousands of abused women, and they were able to provide concrete help. All this came to an abrupt end after the massive state violence in 2021. Her organization was also closed down, and it was no longer possible to continue the work on the ground, and it was so dangerous that she had to live in exile ever since. However, if you look at Irina's work and life's work to date from the outside, you can recognize 3 major strands in her commitment. First of all, her appreciation for all women and sisters of all ages. Especially in her younger years, she paid tribute to her fellow women for all that they had already achieved for equality and women's rights in the Soviet Union. Second, she was never satisfied with an idea, a concept, or academic work for gender equality and equal opportunities. Her claim was that she wanted to make a difference with her work for women who had experienced violence, for women in need. And thirdly, NGO work is only truly effective if it leads to concrete changes in the law and improvements for women. This is why she has never shied away, even under the very difficult political conditions in Belarus, from working constructively with the authorities to further develop women's rights for the benefit of women. And for all that, she deserves a big thank you.
Julia.
She's a women's rights activist from the bottom of her heart, and she always had to fight for her convictions. Her parents, and specifically her mother, were not natural allies for her cause. On the contrary, she was not convinced when Julia decided to study journalism. She was not convinced that this should be the right career choice for her daughter. But Julia did not allow herself to be dissuaded from her goals, and she saw these small obstacles on her career path rather as an additional incentive. When she arrived in Minsk, she felt she belonged to the gay community as a straight woman. She was very lucky to be accepted there. The climate within the community was inclusive. They not only founded a joint organization, but also for the common cause. And with these experiences, Julia came closer to the ideas of feminism. And in the framework of her master's studies, she got insights in gender studies at the European Humanities University. Then she received her next women's political influence after she was confronted with the reality of a male-dominated journalism at her first job at the Belarusian news agency. And, her tenacity on gender and LGBTQ+ issues and her clear stance that allowed her to thrive in this masculine environment. Her foray into politics, to which she found a starting point by devoting a great deal of time leading to the youth organization of a party in Belarus for many years, but the conditions were much harsher and more misogynistic. But her fight for quotas and equality was to pay off. She was able to push through a gremium that is headed by Svetlana Tsikhanovskaya, and it is seen as an alternative to state structures. And this coordination council has a participation of women of 40%, thanks to Julia. And since I know this work, I can only pay my respect. I'm quite sure that you really had to do a lot of persuasion. And, when talking about liberal minds from Belarus, it does not automatically mean enthusiasm for feminist ideals or gender equality in general. Taking on a deputy position in the interim cabinet of the so-called interim government in exile, and that Julia understands that she's not involved in shaping policies in the background. She realizes that if she's not prepared to get involved directly in politics herself and take on responsibilities, others would not fight for her issues and her convictions. She has to do it herself. That's how you recognize passionate politicians. The fact that she's really convinced of her work, becomes clear when you ask her whether she deserves the Anne Klein Prize. Well, her simple answer is not yes, but rather, I will still be at the age of 90 fighting for women, feminism, and our movement. 90 and beyond.
Für Sie sind Feminist.
For her, Feminism, women's equal opportunities, equality, and also happiness, not just some phase of her life, but it is her life. And yes, that is why it is more than appropriate that she's one of our award winners today. Once again, thank you very much for your work.
Darya,
who was called Daphna by her friends, has basically two lives, one before her imprisonment and one after her release. Her 2.5 years in prison completely tore her out of her former life. Nothing has stayed the same. The reason for her conviction in 2020 is as simple as it is sad. She made herself liable to prosecution for feminist activism. Various episodes, as they said, photographing banners, liking comments, or simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Thus, she fell under one of the arbitrary extremism paragraphs of the Lukashenko regime. How insecure and fearful a state must be when it harasses young women like Daphna for drawing women's attention to their rights, for curating women's literature, for educating other women in the history of feminism, for writing blogs, and for being part of the feminist movement. Anyone who takes away the life and spirit of these young women like Daphna, who tries to break them by prohibiting and sanctioning everything that has made up their lives so far in prison, does not embody a strong state, but a very weak one indeed. Daphna is exactly what we want her to be, an active member of civil society, young progressive feminist, and inspired by the idea of passing on as much of her knowledge as possible, of her spirit and strength to other women and sisters. This strength was taken away from her through her martyrdom in the prison camp. Empathy and love are less important here than toughness and perseverance. The women were and still are deprived of their dignity, love, and friendship. At the same time, she's still in touch with many of her fellow prisoners who share this formative time, especially with those who, after years of enduring domestic violence, resorted to radical methods. In their distress, knew no alternative to help themselves than to fight back. However, it is not the violent partner who ends up in prison in Belarus, but it is the woman who resorts to self-defense in the first place. She was repeatedly confronted with these blatant misogynistic injustices in prison camps. After all these hardships, Daphna was relieved after 2.5 years. She had hope for a life of freedom in which she could live, love, work, and blog again. But then everything turned out very differently. Freedom did not come automatically after her release. Daphna suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. She still feels weak after her imprisonment, when there was no warmth, no support, and even less understanding of her lesbianism. Even after 10 months, she still needs emotional recovery. But what she hasn't lost and what no one has been able to take away from her, despite all the harassment, is her sense of humor. Both in the Belarusian gulag and after her release, she was able to make the prison girls, as they were called, laugh with her very own humor. But the changes caused by prison remain. Daphna's energy is reduced. Her batteries can't be recharged so easily. The life she used to lead with clubs and parties has to wait. But I'm very, very sure indeed that such a wonderful political woman with her will and dedication and her experience will manage to inspire and enrich the feminist movement, women, queer people, and other members of the community. And I wish her that with all my heart. Daphna.
Ich hoffe, Ihnen allen ein
I hope I've given you a little insight in the different lives of our three fantastic award winners.
Mir war und ist es eine Ehre, Sie
It was and continues to be an honor to meet them, and I sincerely hope that the award will help them in their work in the fight for women's rights in Belarus. Once again, all the best to you.
Стану я, помыюся я, выйду я з дзвярэй дзверы, з варот у вароты, стану я на чысты луг, на сыру зямлю, погляджу на ўсходнюю старану, туда, там, дзе сонейка зяе, так і ты прыбегай да мяне, прысыхай да мяне, спіш не засынай, гуляй не загуляйся. Все ж до меня прибегай, сердце сердце, мысли мысли, очи очи. За туманом ничего не видно, за туманом ничего не видно. Только видно дуба зеленого, только видно дуба зеленого. Под тем дубом крыница стояла, с той крыницы девка воду брала. Обронила золото колечко, обронила золото колечко. А кто что колечко достанет, а кто что колечко достанет, той со мною на рушничок встанет, той со мною на рушничок встанет.
Живе Беларусь!
Ja, jetzt ist es soweit.
Now, time has almost come.
Wenn wir jetzt zur Preisverleihung tatsächlich übergehen, dann möchte
When we turn to the award ceremony, I first would like to welcome the jury members. Renate Künast, please join me on stage. Silvia Lörmann,
Michaele
Schreier, and Jutta Wagner.
Und ich möchte
And I also would like to welcome on the stage Viola once again and thank her, thank you for your beautiful laudatory speech.
Und nun
And now I would like to ask you on stage, Darya Afanasieva, please.
Irina
Alkhovka.
und Julia Mickiewicz.
And Julia Mickiewicz.
And the groom. Your flowers. So please all sit down. Please go back again. Irina. Die erste Rede werden wir von Irina.
The first speech will be by Irina Alkhovka. Please.
Oh, wow. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Okay. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues and feminist sisters, Darya, Julia. First and foremost, allow me to express my heartfelt gratitude to my dear colleagues from the Razam organization for nominating me for this award and for your unwavering belief in me. I also extend my sincere appreciation to the Heinrich-Böll Foundation and jury for recognizing my contribution to the advancement of women's rights in Belarus. I stand before you today deeply humbled and profoundly honored, but more than that, I feel empowered by the immense support and solidarity of so many remarkable women standing behind me. To each and every one of them, I extend my deepest thanks. This award for me is not merely a symbol of recognition, it is an opportunity to reflect upon almost 30 years long journey. It is a profoundly symbolic that in 2024, this award is bestowed upon 3 women, each representing a different generations of activists fighting for gender equality and women's rights in Belarus. This fills me with the hope and strengthens my conviction that even though we're unable to work in Belarus at the present, we continue to serve our country and champion the interests of women. Our approach may differ, our sources of inspiration may vary, yet we are united by a singular goal to amplify the voices of Belarusian women, to ensure their interests are represented, and to embed women's rights firmly within the framework of democratic values. Speaking of the generations of women activists, I wish to pay tribute to the courageous women who guided me into this movement in the 1990s. They never had a chance to receive a word of public recognition, but their contribution is immeasurable and can't be overestimated. Let us recall these times. The early 1990s, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the opening of borders, and the dawn of a new world filled with possibilities and ideas. My university professor asked me if I wanted to join a women's group. She was 55 at that time, the retirement age of women in those days. Her father named her after Stalin's daughter, Svetlana, and she had built her academic career during the Soviet era. She had no knowledge of English, no experience in project management, no personal computer, and no access to the internet, but she possessed boundless enthusiasm and noblest of intention to bring changes into the world and to the lives of women. How did she do it? How did she, having very conservative family background, shaped by the Soviet system, find the courage to break away, to take risks, and to inspire her students, including myself, with the ideas of women's solidarity? It takes an unyielding spirit and a truly free mind to change a system in which one has lived their entire life. I admire her immensely, and I honor and remember all these women, extraordinary women before me, who taught me that it's never late to change your life, and one can make her dream come true at any age. Preserving the legacy of Anna Klein is a powerful opportunity to pay homage to all the women of previous generations who paved the way for others, just as Anna Klein did, championing women's rights and ensuring their voices were integrated into political discourse. Her resilience and courage serve as a beacon for all of us in every era. As I continue my reflection, I want to share another story from the early days of my career. In 2000, a German NGO contacted me seeking assistance for a Belarusian woman who had been trafficked to Germany. She had suffered sexual exploitation in a brothel, testified against her perpetrators in court, but she was ultimately denied an extension of her residency status and forced to return to Belarus after spending more than a year in Germany. At that time, I had only theoretical knowledge and understanding of human trafficking. I never encountered a trafficking survivor in real life, but I wanted to help. My heart was big, and I wanted to change the world. I went to Minsk airport, a vast, cold, concrete and glass building. I was a 28-year-old woman, feeling small and insecure there, but with an important mission. The plane arrived, and as people were coming out of the arrival gate, I noticed a young woman with 2 large suitcases. She was elegantly dressed, wearing a silk nice scarf, and holding a can of Coca-Cola. My first was, this cannot be her. I believe I had no expectations, having never met a trafficking survivor before, yet I had unconsciously expected someone. I was expecting ideal victim. I expected someone visibly broken, crying, down on her knees, pleading for help. So I come and save her, and we will sing Kumbaya together. But that was nothing like this. She was fragile, yet strong, her head held high, yet suspicious of me. Her suitcases were full of second-hand clothes from women's shelter and modest gifts for her child. Even her undergarment had been provided by the shelter, so she has nothing of her own possession. And yet, despite everything she had endured, she carried herself with the dignity. And I still remember this picture in a single detail. This was one of the most profound lessons in my life. I learned not having expectations, to listen, to respect, to understand and accept, not to judge, not trying to solve, but let women share their stories in their own ways and their own words, to see people before procedures and human dignity before trauma. This is only the way we can empower women to reclaim their strengths and dignity, to regain control over their lives. And I thank her, this woman. I don't remember her name, and I hope that she is okay now. Therefore, I'm profoundly grateful to the women who trusted me and who have taught me how to help them. And I strive to pass on this invaluable lesson to the new generation of women's rights activists. Over the years, my team and myself, we transformed women's pain and tears into laws, policies, and services. In 2000, just 4 months after La Strada Belarus organized the first roundtable on human trafficking, I got a phone call from the Ministry of Internal Affairs informing me that the criminal code would be amended to include an anti-trafficking provision. So I had actually ministry official reporting me about the follow-up of our roundtable. A year later, a safe migration counseling hotline was launched. In 2004, we opened a shelter for trafficked survivors for women. In 2012, our team established a national helpline for survivors of domestic violence, which responded to over 15,000 phone calls in 9 years. And you know what I'm proud, one of the most, is that women were coming to our services as our clients, as our beneficiaries, but they were living as citizens. And I remember how a lot of them, they told us, thank you for valuing me and helping. Now I feel I am better. Now I can take care of myself. And each time I returned to the office after exhausting meetings in the ministries with officials, tired and frustrated, I would see our helpline staff tirelessly picking up the phone and saying, "Hello, I'm here for you, how can I help you?" And I would tell myself, you cannot give up. I thought the darkest moment was in 2010, when the government overturned the draft law on domestic violence, which the women's advocated for 20 years, and then in 2021, the exile. I was forced into exile. Exile has brought me profound sorrow, the pain of a shattered family, but also anguish for the women in Belarus who continue to suffer from domestic violence, with limited access or no access at all to gender-sensitive and non-judgmental support. I grieve that so much of what my colleagues and I built over the years was dismantled overnight. But you know, nothing can shake me. Nothing can shake my values, my beliefs, or my commitment to women's rights. This is... This is my superpower. This is superpower of so many Belarusian women, both in Belarus and in exile, to survive, to preserve our faith and resilience, and to take small but meaningful steps forward each other. When I asked what I'm most proud of after years of engagement in the women's movement, I answer without hesitation, inspiring a new generation of women to join the movement. And though now I belong to the esteemed club of La Strada founding grandmothers, I have many years ahead of me, and I'm strong enough to continue my work. So today, let us applaud women across generations, pioneers and their successors. We are different, but in these dark times, let us focus on what unites us rather than divide us. The backlash against gender equality makes progress difficult, but even holding the line against the regression is an achievement. So my original final message was about, as what Ima said, there is no democracy without women's voices in politics. There is no society prosperity without women accessing well-paid job and equal payment. There is no national security without good laws that protect women. And there is no peace without women at the negotiation tables. And as today I visited the Tea Palace and I saw the war, the place where the wall was, I want to conclude by saying, please help us not build a wall around Belarus. You know, there is no Europe without Belarus. There is no Belarus without Europe. We have common agenda. Let's support each other in its realization. Thank you.
Я взяла ее с собой, потому что, мне кажется, она выглядит лучше, чем Оскар.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think these prizes really look better than the Oscar Academy Award. For me, it is truly a great honor for me to be here on this stage, this together with two strong and impressive women, Irina and Julia, to be on a stage where other impressive women have stood before, and they were able to demonstrate that we can get things moving, that we can achieve something. For me, it is a big honor to know that more women will stand here, women who advocate our rights. In 2021, people in black clothes intruded my apartment. That was the last time when I was able to breathe freedom, and it lasted until 2024. I could have said, like, it is a story of survival, but it was a struggle of survival of women that should have been silenced, women who took to the streets, who raised their voices, and that summed up this power. And they saw what power there is. Lukashenko said, this power is not for women, but they sustained it all. Thousands of women who know what it means to fight, to lose everything, health, freedom, the right to your own body, the right to your own voice, without, however, losing yourself. And, well, I am really grateful to receive this prize, and these are the words that my words spoken for other women have been heard. I would like to thank my mother, who really went all the paths of my imprisonment. She was on my side, she was at my side, and she is a true Wonder Woman to me. And then I would also like to thank all women who have enabled me to be here on stage wearing trousers, and my voice, and that my voice is strong. And thank you also to all women of the present who work day by day, who have to prove that they are able to do as good a job as any man.
Women that are confronted with violence and need to prove that there's violence, women that meet obstacles and still unflinchingly continue their path. Belarus has become known in 2020, and our struggle has been visible, but women has always struggled for the right to speak and to be. In 2020, we were seen, but unfortunately not heard. Our problems didn't occur only yesterday, and they weren't solved. And I dedicated my academic work and my professional work to education, to raising awareness. I try to reach out to every woman, trying to make them understand that domestic violence is not a private problem, and it should be punishable, and it is important to support each other. And sisterhood is crucial, and victim blaming is unacceptable. I deemed it necessary to reach out to every single woman that happened to be in a difficult situation due to domestic violence and make them understand that this can happen to any woman. In 2020, when I was imprisoned, I decided to take it as a mission, because here I got the opportunity to meet so many survivors, and I got the chance to learn about what they've been through. And I don't only mean the political prisoners that now are, of which there are more than 1,200 people in prisons currently in Belarus. I mean women that needed to protect their lives and now are imprisoned for defending themselves. Women are imprisoned for self-defense, and the violators, the rapists, and the perpetrators are in freedom. Why? Because the whole penal system and the whole system is created to control us and not to protect us, to subjugate us, to make us, to silence us, and bless you. To make us obedient. And many of these women don't even realize that they are in an abusive relationship, that defending yourself is not equal to murder. We lack information, awareness, or any kind of infrastructure or services to prevent women of finding themselves in these situations. Women are very vulnerable group in Belarus. And now when I speak about my prison experience, I'd love to say it's my past. It's something that I passed and now I'm somewhere else. Unfortunately, it is not true. Every single day, I think about all these women that don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, that don't see their children and their family and don't get to be free. Today, again, in the penal colony, women are checked and controlled rigorously, and women that defended themselves are separated from the others. They wear different clothing and they're recognizable to the other inmates. Every day when I open my eyes, I am anxious that I could be back in prison, in my cell and not in my room. Every day in prison, you are being broken and your voice is muffled by the bars. I know what a system looks like that hates and fears women, because women represent strength and they fear to lose their strength, their power. Belarus is a country where women took the streets with flowers and were thrown into prison vans, where you can get a prison sentence for a white and red T-shirt, where there is inhumane labor and endless humiliation in the penal colony because they want to subjugate us, where female political prisoners are not just numbers in the statistics, but real stories, real names, real broken families, people that are behind these women. But just because we are being locked up doesn't mean we give up. It means that we are powerful and we are feared. It means that they fear women. I dream of a world where feminism becomes superfluous, where our victories won't be a miracle, but a norm, just a norm where women in Belarus will get the opportunity to love, to vote, to choose for themselves. I dream of a day when I wake up and don't read about other cases of violence against women in the news in Belarus. I dream of a world where I can just work in a bookshop. But unfortunately, this day has not yet come. And this is why I need to fight, and we need to fight. As Julia said, until I'm 90 years old or beyond, may it be so, because I'm a feminist and we are feminists. And for me, feminism is not an abstract idea. It is a necessity today. It is the struggle for our right to speak up. It is a struggle for those that cannot be silenced, that fear, for those that feel lonely and isolated, but we are not. I know what it means to be a lesbian in a country where your love is recognized or considered pornography. I know what it means to be beaten up for a banner in front of the governmental building. But we are still here. We still exist. And now, today, accepting this award, I can say that we are here because we did not surrender, because there were people next to me that kept on struggling next to me, because still thousands of women fight for one aim, for one goal, our rights. And I would like to dedicate this award to all of these women that continue their struggle. They don't need to be activists. It's enough to be women. I would like to dedicate this award to all the women behind bars, all the women who were forced into exile, and all the women that are still there and keep on fighting, that keep on doing what they do. I don't know how much time we need to continue our struggle, but I know that it's not a question of if, but a question of when. And now I would like to end my statement, my speech, by the words that are written on my t-shirt: fight like a Belarusian girl. Live on, Belarus.
Спасибо вам огромное. Шановні колежанки ды колеги, партнёры і партнёркі, мои сяброўкі і сябры, якіх я бачу ў гэтым зале, які...
Honored colleagues and friends, partners and associates, sisters and brothers-in-law who I see in this room and who I know are watching this ceremony on YouTube. This great audience, honor and privilege to be here to receive this prize together with Daphne and Irina to receive the Anna Klein's famous recognition. Thank you very much to the organizers and the Heinrich-Böll Foundation and everyone else involved. And it is very nice to receive a prize as a recognition for your work, but receiving a prize for feminist activities is a special honor. Unfortunately, there are not too many prizes in the world to women. Much of what we do still remains invisible or loses its importance and significance over time. And on my desk in my apartment, there is a sign: full-time feminist. And if you know me and everything what I do, you will know that it reflects my activities in the past 25 years. Being a feminist means to me to be dedicated, not to be indifferent, and to be empathic. And this has been the case since I am able to think back. Even as a child, I had a strong sense of justice. I wanted to help those and support those who I believed had to suffer injustice. And then I was often criticized by grown-ups that didn't understand me. I grew up during the time of the Soviet Union and the post-Soviet Union, where the role of women and young girls was very limited. Possibilities were very limited. The expectations to us often did not correspond to our plans and ideas. I noticed from within that something was wrong here, that it is unjust, but I was not able to find the right words. I lacked the knowledge and the experience, but nonetheless, I always tried to prevent any kind of injustice and take care that it never happens again. What was the main reason why in the early 2000s I became a civil activist and that I joined an LGBTQ plus initiative? Then I became a journalist, then I got involved in a youth social democratic organization and eventually founded an educational project with Swedish partners. Everything I have worked for and that I'm working on has always been about feminism, and feminism is the guiding principle and basis of my work, life, and lifestyle. Holding various positions in different structures and organizations, having public weight, having a public voice, status, and influence. I try to use them as much as possible as tools in the pursuit of feminist ideas and feminist values. And all this is especially strongly, it became very clear during the protests, during the elections. New Belarus has been planning since the revolution of 2020, and in my heart, I will always remember this inspiration, these inspiring, beautiful women in our marches and demonstrations, and the conviction that we would have turned the situation in our favor and that we would be able to win. At that time, the whole world learned about Belarusian women, and one learned where they stood in Belarus. And we noted that we are not alone, that we don't have to go it alone. And I will always insist that the protests from the 1920s were already based on feminist principles of inclusiveness and measured leadership, and the mutual care based on solidarity. When I was imprisoned, and together with my friend Olya Sparagai, we talked a lot, and we held seminars for philosophy and women's rights for our common sisters. And I noticed, and I became clear about the fact that our fight will never end, that we always have to use our strength to continue the struggle in any given situation. And I have gained many important experiences from women in many states, and well, bold women, and I was imprisoned in one room with them in a confined space for 15 days. I'm very grateful to them, the same way as I'm grateful to the women in Belarus and everyone I have been able to work together with. And I know about the difficult situation of the women in the country, all those barriers and limitations that they have to overcome. Sexism and pressure and devaluation that they have to sustain. And there is also a feeling of being isolated, and a lot more the syndrome of imposture and the felt lack of support. I still find it difficult to voice my opinion, although I'm really experienced also in giving public speeches. However, I do hope that I will be able to help other women not to fear talking about their acquisitions. I know and I believe that without the participation and leadership of women, there can be no democratic policy, one that responds to the interests and demands of women and other vulnerable groups. And without this, there is no social justice and social equality, economic, political, cultural. And without my feminist sisterhood, there can be no equality in no way. And in difficult moments, it is our feminist sisterhood that really helps me. And it is also the inspiration of incredible women from Belarus who are my strong love. And they're doing their work, their resistance, despite all the problems they endure every second in the country. And I will not tire to mention it time and again. As our colleague said it, I will not tire and I will not give up, because I have a dream. In living in Belarus, where the decision makers, and at least 50% of them are women, having the political will in order to achieve equal opportunities, without which no inclusive democracy can exist. Otherwise, it would be a chair with just 3 legs. And the same goes for women and girls. Lisa and Masha, they are 10 and 6 years old, and they also lived in forced exile. They are part of a new generation, and I'm learning a lot from them. For example, to stand up for myself and to defend my limitations and boundaries, and how to fight for myself. And I think they have a better future ahead of them. It seems that you need feminism as an ideal and as a strategy, with a view to the anti-gender movements all across Europe. And, well, dictators are coming to power and usurping it, not only through rigged elections, but also through democratic means. And the first thing they do is to start competing with gender issues, like talking about a national inclusion policy to fight against feminist foreign policy. They fight against abortion and they deny domestic violence. This is the policy of such autocrats for whom sexism and gamophobia are extreme practices, and feminism is used by them as extremism. And this is why we should capitalize on solidarity, not only among feminists, but we need to work together in the spirit of solidarity when talking about humanitarian, democratic institutions based on humanitarian foundations, because this is the fight for the respect of our humanity, and this fight is timeless. And I would like to dedicate this award to my grandmother, mother, and Masha, with whom I was imprisoned. Women who have dreams, but they can't pursue them due to obstacles and prejudice. They don't have a chance, or they have double or triple burden, like at work, reconciling the career with the family. For that reason, they don't have a possibility of making their dreams come true. And it is also the strong Anne Klein who fought for women's equality, and she too is my inner resource in order to continue my struggle. I dedicate this prize to my beloved FEM group and my dear colleagues in the organization of ABF, with all Belarusian activists who are in prison and who stay in Belarus or who have to live in exile. And in our sisterhood, it is our power. It is not just nice words, but in fact, this is what bonds us to each other and to our sisters and friends across the world. And they pursue our feminist struggle 24/7 for a life without violence, without discrimination, without war, and without conflict. It is our voices, the voices of women. This is our voice and our choice. And human rights too are the best companions for women. Thank you very much. I am happy today. Long live Belarus.
Гэта песня таксама старадаўняя, старажытная. У ёй паўтараюцца.
This song too is ancient. It's about returning home, and it's dedicated to all those women today that want to come back home and cannot. And we want to sing this song for them about our dream and our home, a hope to return home.
Живе Беларусь! Вольная! Великий дякую! Danke schön!
Belarus. Congratulations, dear women, From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for everything we are doing together.
Liebe Gäste,
dear guests, now I can only say thank you. Thanks to everybody who contributed to this great event. Thank you to the interpreters, a big thank you.
An die Verantwortlichen für die Technik, die
and to the sound engineer sitting in the darkness.
An unser Tagungsbüro.
To our conference bureau that prepared this beautiful room.
An das zuständige Referat hier im Haus.
And the competent department in-house, Robert Sperfeld and Roberta Rubinian-Gerd.
Ihr habt ein wunderbares politisches Besuchsprogramm für uns.
And you have organized a wonderful political visit agenda for our guests, and you also went with them. Thank you for that. And of course, Ulrich Zichu, who once again prepared this beautiful event. So, Ulrike, thank you very much.
Und ein großer Dank an Sie alle.
And a big thank you to you all. Great to have you here. Thank you for awarding the prize together with us to Darya Afanasieva, Irina Alkhovka, and Julia Mickiewicz, the Anne Klein Women's Prize 2025.
Ja. Und nun lade ich Sie und euch alle.
Now, I would like to cordially invite you all to our reception and dance. Continue to have a great evening, and once again, I would like to thank you for this wonderful music.